Hey guys, I want to talk to you about something for a second. Cash grabs. You see, when you have a successful franchise, you need to find as many ways as possible to monetize it. Like with visual media for example, this is usually done by shoveling out sequels as if they're on a factory production line, or by transitioning them to other forms of media. Now I'm not saying this is always done to poor effect, but it isn't always done with noticeable effort either. You've got things like books into films, films into books, TV shows into films, Christians into sluts, video games into films, toys into cartoons, into comic books, into films, into games, video games into films, into video games again? What the fuck? Then of course we have TV shows made into video games. A somewhat odd transition which you honestly don't see that often and you can't imagine ever being done well. With that in mind, let's get on topic. The Walking Dead started as a visual novel by Robert Kirkman and Tony Moore, which follows the story of Rick Grimes and other survivors during a zombie apocalypse. It was praised for its human element and grim outlook, very rarely pulling any punches. 6 years after its release, the series was adapted into a currently very popular TV show of the same name, but was subject to multiple divergences away from the visual novel's plotline, save for the excellent pilot episode. Now, in my opinion, the show suffered for this in terms of quality, but still remains entertaining enough to watch while also making me genuinely concerned for the characters. Well, some of them. Andrea's a cunt. The visual novel, again, was adapted into a video game in 2012 with Telltale's The Walking Dead, which followed a new set of survivors set in the same universe and maintained its aesthetic style. While the game played more like an interactive story rather than a fully fledged video game, it was able to provide the same impact as the visual novel in its ability to maintain a grim atmosphere and relatable characters. Those feels, man. Anyway, this of course brings us to the main topic of today's video, The Walking Dead Survival Instinct, a video game adaptation of the live-action TV series following Daryl before the events of the show. Now this is what I was talking about, a cash grab, a rush product which primary means was to print money and feed up the success of the franchise. Let me tell you, I had no hope for this game since seeing the first trailer. I knew exactly what it would be. Uninspired tripe. It didn't help the fact that they had already announced DLC because
we've got to have money.
And of course it follows Daryl's story, who appears to be the most popular character on a TV show right now. Why couldn't they make a game about Carol being an abused wife before the zombie apocalypse even happened? Anyway, why don't we jump into this attempt at effective interactive media and see where things went wrong. So we get this seal of quality right upon opening the game, and hilariously you can skip the developer, Terminal Reality's introduction splash credit, but you can't skip Activision's or AMC's, as if they coded it this way purposefully to ensure the blame will be shifted to the people responsible for the funding. The game opens rather abruptly with the character auspiciously named Dixon, who after the worst stealthy approach ever to a deer, is faced with an endless horde of the undead. Unfortunately, the game doesn't give you enough ammo to MLG all these scrubs, so you're left to their peril, with chest-high walls and linear level design being the true killers. Turns out it was all an elaborate ruse, and you were actually playing as Daryl and Meryl's father. The only thing I like about this opening is that it shows a more vulnerable and weak Daryl before he became the not giving a single fuck badass he is on the show.
Sorry, brother.
Anyway, cut to Daryl very soon after, considering the person he's with was bitten during the last encounter. Also, speaking of that, where the fuck did the other zombies go just before Dixon's demise? There must have been like 10 of them there, but there's only one left during the cutscene. Fucking bullshit. So he's held up in some cabin in the woods, stocked up on some Gatorade and Mountain Dew hybrid, which I'm going to call Gator Dew, and instant meal in a bag. This food, by the way, isn't for any kind of hunger mechanic, something that, you know, might be good for a zombie survival game, but it's just to replenish your static health bar, just like the one Daryl has on the show. Getting back to the game, apparently
we gotta work up a plan. 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 We gotta work up a plan.
On that note, what's this guy's masterful plan? Get the fuck out of here because the zombies are coming? I concur. This follows up with one of those parts in a game that makes things seem really urgent, but they actually aren't. Because if you do nothing, nothing happens. Now we have our first taste of the gameplay, with Daryl being the masterful knife expert he is, goes all Sam Fisher on the walkers. Okay, so we get introduced to some of the mechanics. Firing guns attracts walkers, you can also use some of the items to distract them, you need to collect fuel for your car, something I'm guessing you're going to be doing a lot in this game. The melee combat appears to be about ferociously shoving the enemies and mashing M1 until the game dictates that enough knife swipes in the zombie's face is sufficient to re-kill them. Then we have this grapple mechanic, where zombies line up to get a chance to grope your manly figure, to which you reply by stabbing them in the face. Oddly, each walker takes turns grappling you, while you take minimal to no damage, resulting in a quasi-god mode while the event transpires. Walkers also seem to have taken biting off the menu in favour of arm flailing in your general direction. Are you fucking kidding me? Another one of these? I hate to do that generic internet reviewer thing, but fuck it, I'm gonna start counting them. So Daryl somehow refills the car despite a horde of the undead surrounding him, and he and his doomed friend make their way out of there. We get introduced to this travelling mechanic, which is the primary means of progression in this game. You're given 3 options of how to get to your destination, each with its own benefits and downsides. However, I found out from later in the game, if a dialogue section occurs during travelling, then there's no chance of you stopping, which means if you are taking a high fuel consumption route like the back roads, there's no chance of you stopping for supplies. What a well thought out mechanic! Oh boy, here we go. We enter our first little town called Sedalia, with Daryl's primary goal slated to find Merle, and we get our first look at the survivor management system. Basically, you can send out survivors you acquire during missions and send them out to do various tasks, with varying degrees of success. Now I'm guessing the only person I'm with currently has some serious plot armor, so I'll hand him a hammer and send him on his way to get some food. Also, for someone who's been bitten by something that guarantees a 100% fatality rate, his condition's looking pretty good. Anyway, let's get down to business. What's first on the menu? Okay, that thing I spent the last mission doing. Well, at least it's not linear, right? You motherfuckers. Alright, to be fair, this level does give you a whopping 2 optional things to do, and as much as I'd like to get through this as quickly as possible, I may as well see what the game has to offer. You come across this police officer who tells you where to get gas, which with this amount of linear level design wasn't really necessary, and promises he'll help you if you find him some batteries, which apparently only the police station has. Gee, this place really would have sucked if your Game Boy died. Once you get there, you... Oh well, ain't that something. The walkers have got caught on some small piece of a former fence, with even one of the other zombies looking on in awe, as I'm sure they're equally embarrassed. I remember seeing this kind of incompetence in AI programming in a zombie game made 8 years ago. And surely, not 1 minute later, I see the same thing again. Even with the same instance of a zombie spectator. No wait, my mistake, 2 zombie spectators. They don't even care if I dry heave them. Hey fellas, mind if I get through here? Okay, so we find the batteries, and soon after come across this delightful character guarding weapons, who agrees to exchange a food stock you found earlier for some of his munitions. But frankly, the ammunition loss and damage incurred making your way there wasn't really worth it. So you leave the police station, and what do you know? Those 2 are still going at it. Well, that's enough of that. 2 jump scares and about 50 gator Jews later, you finally come across the person who will grant you some fuel, as long as you take him with you. Conveniently, his uncle has the key at a nearby trailer park to turn on the generator so you can pump out some fuel. I find it odd how trusting Daryl is of the stranger. The police officer you can kind of understand, but some random person in the gas station, not so much. Even in the show, Daryl was wary of strangers.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. We don't know this girl. You can't get on that horse.
Who knows, maybe at some point later in the game Daryl gets betrayed to perhaps create this trait for him, but I wouldn't hold my breath. Okay, so let's get to this trailer park and hope to God this level is almost over. Lucky for me, the game doesn't even care anymore as you can't enter any of the caravans, which would undoubtedly have useful supplies, and instead pretty much funnels you through to the objective. A reskinned zombie. But with a major difference.
But she's got a new hat.
So you get the generator keys, and this inexplicably attracts walkers near and far, despite the fact that I haven't fired a shot since the police station. On a random note, there was this car here which Daryl pushes with an appendage which aren't his arms. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. We're almost there, folks. You go back to the fuel station, then the game pulls a Left 4 Dead, as the generator makes a loud noise, attracting walkers, which makes sense this time as opposed to the trailer park incident. Anyway, let's see how frantic and tense things get in my desperate attempt to get fuel.
Come on.
Whew, holy shit, that was close. So you beeline it back to the car with the police officer you gave batteries to earlier supposedly covering you, and that's that for Sedalia. Now I need to make the tough decision of which 2 survivors to keep, as apparently the vehicle I'm using can only hold 3 people. Clearly, nobody could possibly fit in the back. I don't have much faith in their stats meaning much, but the police officer seems to have more health, and somehow made it to the car at the same time I did, despite being on a roof about 1 kilometer away. Surely he must be the Flash who still must abide by his identity hiding rules. Sorry, Warren. Oh look, branching paths. That would be a good replayability point. However, if the core gameplay experience isn't very good, then the compulsion to replay the game suddenly diminishes. The problem I'm noticing is that the game really can't do much with its currently 1 enemy type. Some interesting scenarios have yet to be seen, otherwise it's just a go somewhere, zombies show up, go somewhere, zombies show up, go somewhere, zombies show up. Even all of the missions have been fetch quests so far, and the story itself has been the most engaging thing in the Grace video games since the rat encounter in Battlefield 3. Anyway, join me next time for the continuation of Daryl's journey, to see if Mr. 100% Condition will ever turn, or if Merle is actually in this game.